a koyak within the person. For example, by the person you have the koyak of seichel, the koyak of midas, and then when you call a person by Shem Chacham, which call him Shem Gibber, and so on. So when you have all these different types of names, so then that evokes, when a person is called by that name, that evokes and brings out that koyach from the person. The idea of malchus is likened to the person's own personal name. That the person's own personal name, before you call them by that name, Chaim, Yankel, Shmuel, whatever, that name was completely concealed within the person. Not like the power of Chachma that was present in the person. And then when you call him a Chacham, you're bringing that down and you're evoking that by him, but it's completely concealed. The same thing, Malchus is called shame, because Malchus is a lot more concealed within Hashem, and it needs to be drawn down from a more deeper concealment, what he called previously a helam, a type of concealment that's not even close to revelation, or a helam she'ein b'metzius, or a concealment that's not in the way of an existence, like fire, the way it's concealed within a flint rock. So over there, it's completely concealed beyond any type of normal level. And that's why, to be able to bring that out on Rosh Hashanah, it's the idea of Mamakim, and also it's not just Rosh Hashanah, but the entire process of the Aseret שובה that we're in now. Every day is another aspect of Binyan HaMalchus, of drawing it down from the depths itself. So now we're going to go on further about this idea of calling by the name. So we're holding Ois Hey, bottom of page 9. Yet the same gufa in name itself, yesh kama dargis b'inyan. In the idea that we call a person by a name, whether we're calling him by his title or he's called by, in other words, by a descriptive name, Chacham, Gibber, Chazdam, etc., or we're calling him by his personal name. There are different levels, as we will explain. Analysis Bay is like we spoke about in the second Eisel that there is the idea of calling him by a name of someone that is a chacham, he's wise, or calling him that he's a benevolent person. This is that by calling him that he's a bal seichel, calling him and telling him how benevolent he is, so then it evokes and brings about the revelation of the power of chachma and the power of chesed. Yes, in there's the idea of calling him by a personal name like Reuben or Shimon. Through calling the person by their name, Reuben or Shimon, that causes that the person now turns to you. By calling their name, so previously the person did not have any connection with you, you're calling him by name, he turns towards you. I explained at length in the Maim. Then he goes on to say that the Maim that the Rebbe is referring to from the previous Rebbe, that even though both things are called in Lashon Kodesh name, he's called by the name Chacham, he's called by the name Reuven. So we're using the same term. But a lot of times students will differentiate and say we might use the same term, but they're not the same concept. He says, Yesh chiluk b'name, there's a difference between them. So he says, first of all, we have the difference that we mentioned earlier in the mind. So he says in the parentheses, Malvada chiluk amar le'il, in addition to the difference that he mentioned earlier, Sheshem ha'adam ein nimtzu by kol kach koyim makriya, k'mayshin nimtzu by behelm kach chacham v'chesed. That the name of a person before he was ever called by the name is not even found in a concealed way, in such a way like the power of Chacham is concealed within the person before he was called a Chacham. It's a different type of concealment, a much deeper type of concealment. Another difference between the name of a person like Reuben or Shimon versus calling him by the name Chacham or Chazdan and so on. So he sends 2 lines from the bottom. Hashem Chacham v'Chazdan kosher im koyach v'inim mesuyim. The name Chacham, the name benevolent, that is connected with a specific power, a unique and specific thing. In other words, you are dealing with one specific aspect of the person. You're relating now, when you're calling him a Chacham, when you're calling him a Chazan, you're relating to one specific component, one specific part of the person. It's not possible to say that through that the person turns with his entire essence, his entire being, like with the calling of the name of a person. When you're calling the person by name, not by title or description, but by name, like Reuven and Shimon, then the entire being of the person turns there. There's the famous story of the Tzemach Tzedek and the Alter Rebbe, that Alter Rebbe was once playing with the Tzemach Tzedek as a child, and he asked the Tzemach Tzedek, who is Zayda? Where is the Zayda? Where's the grandfather? In other words, where's the Alter Rebbe? So he took the Alter Rebbe's beard and he says, "Nein, that's the Alter Rebbe's bird. This is the Alter Rebbe's beard." And then he took another part of the Alter Rebbe, and no, this is the Alter Rebbe's hand, this is the Alter Rebbe's foot, whatever. Then the Alter Rebbe went on to do whatever he was doing. Then the Tzemach Tzedek, as a little child, called out, "Zayda, Zayda." The Alter Rebbe turned to the Tzemach Tzedek. The Tzemach Tzedek says, "Adoi Zayda." As a little child, he said, "Here is Zayda." In a similar way, that where do you get the person as a whole? You get it with the name, the personal name, like Reuven and Shimon, not by the title of being a Chacham and a Chazan and so on. Therefore, top of the next page. Though the name Chacham or Chazan indicates a particular quality, it shows on some particular Maila. He has some type of quality. He's wise. He's benevolent. As opposed to when he only calls out the name Reuven and Shimon, all it is a name. It's nothing about the person's level and so on. It doesn't indicate on a particular quality. So seemingly the person's name is of lesser value and import. Still in all, it doesn't reach the ultimate elevation and the perfect bond with the essence of the soul that's to be found with the constant name that they call him, not just his description. Reuven, Shimon, the name of Reuven and Shimon and so on is what brings him into being. It gives him life and gives him existence, like the Baal Shem Tov teaches that the Shmoyash, the very name that a person is called in Lashon Kodesh, that is a source and channel for energy in all matters. And through the name of the person, so that is the channel, the portal through which the chayis of the neshama comes into the body, or how the life force and vitality comes into the neshama that's in the body. Therefore we find the idea, even someone that faints, when you call out his name in his ear, comes down from it, from those powers that are beyond those aspects of his being that fainted and became elevated. From there, the life force and vitality should come down to the body down here. In other words, as follows: when a person faints, that means that his revealed soul powers are not manifesting in the body down here. The revealed soul powers of his mind, of his heart, of his consciousness, these are external soul powers. They're not revealed in the body. The name is the connector between the part of the soul that is higher than the revealed soul powers with the part of the soul that has the revealed soul powers. When you call a person by the name, so that taps back into the source. You're going back into the original source where those names came from. Where those So that chayas came from that left, and you're bringing it down anew. That is the power of the name, which is so much more powerful than what the calling a person a chacham and a chazan. When you're calling a person a chacham and a chazan, so then you're only drawing down from those external manifestations of the soul, from those particular soul powers of chacham and chesed. When you're calling the name, it's reaching to the essential part of the soul to connect again with that part of the soul that's in the body, to reinvigorate and re-enliven all those powers of the soul that need to come down here into the body. Let's learn another voice first. Well, yes, that we can add to this. Hine gam Hashem is the Reuven, Shimon, Kshurim, and Inyan Masuyim. Also, the names Reuven and Shimon are connected with a specific matter. So, even though up till now we said that the Chacham and Chazdam, that's specific about the power of Chachma, it's about the power of Chesed that the person has. Reuven and Shimon is the general person, entire being, and so on. Still in all, the name itself is an indicator and designates something particular. Shem Reuven al Shem Kiro Havaya, because why is Reuven called Reuven? Like it says over there in Chumash, because Hashem saw. Shem Shimon al Shem Kisham Havaya. Why was Shimon called Shimon? Because Leah was saying that Hashem heard. Then there are names that we do not know a reason for them. Since the reason is not revealed, they're just mysteries. They don't necessarily mean anything that we consciously can understand. So the Rebbe says this is even a deeper level. The Rebbe adds, therefore, perhaps we could say, in addition to the two levels that were explained at length in the Maimer, that there's the two levels. Hashem is Chacham, when we call a person by title, by description, that he's wise and that he's benevolent, versus another level, a deeper level of name. Hashem is Reuven B'Shimon, whether we're talking a personal name like Reuven and Shimon. So the Rebbe is going to introduce an even higher level. That yes, Darga Shlishis, there's a third level on top of those two. Hashem is She'en Yadua Tam Lahem. Those names that the reason for those names are unknown. Ba'afal became and still in all, despite the fact that it's such a high level that it's beyond our understanding and comprehension. There's still the idea that the name is what gives a person life and vitality and energy, like the Baal Shem Tov taught. The movement of Baal Shem Tov, like it's understood from the teaching of the Baal Shem Tov, that the name is what is the source of the person's vitality. And in both types of names, personal names. B'Shem is Sheyesh Lem Tam, B'Shem Lem Tam, both the names that have a reason. And the names that do not have a reason, through that the person turns to the one who called him with his entire being, that because not like Chacham v'Chazdan, that only evokes that particular power, but through calling him by name Reuven and Shimon, or he calls him by another name which has seemingly no meaning. In both instances, in the second and third level of names, that the person's entire being turns to whoever calls him. Not like through calling him by Chacham and Chazdan, when he calls him by name Chacham and Chazdan, only because it only comes down from the power of his Chachman, his power of his kindness. Rather, it's rather in such a way that the entire being of the person turns to the one who calls them when he uses these names, whether they're names that have a meaning to them or names that do not have a meaning to them. I'll say them as even more so. Specifically a name that we do not know about it, a revealed reason. Through this name, even more so, the essence of the person turns to him. And this is like a chiddush of the Rebbe. The Rebbe says, perhaps we say this. He didn't, meaning the Rebbe didn't see that in a different mimer. But it seems to be that the Rebbe is indicating that it would seem to be that a name that has no meaning to it whatsoever, or that's no revealed meaning, would tap in even deeper into the person and reveal more of the person's essence. Any questions before we go on? Okay, Zion on page 10, I believe. Turn the page already, correct. The dogma similar to this is also about when concerning the idea of making me a king over you. How does this accomplish? How does the Eibishter become a king over us? Through saying throughout Aseret Shuva many times the description Hamelech. Say Hamelech Hamishpat, Hamelech HaKadosh, and so on. Like we spoke about at the beginning of the Maimon, the first ois, Chaydes, and Mamshichim Astingan Malchus, Mikmoy, Shehiba Hel, that through that we draw down the idea of kingship from a state the way it's concealed, that has no connection with revelation. Helam She'enim Metzias, a concealment that is not in existence. That this type of drawing down, that over there, it's not possible at all to say the idea of kingship, because it's so concealed, it's so deep, it's such a level that is beyond revelation, that the concept of kingship, the concept of royalty, the concept of being a king over a subject is not even applicable. I knew this means it's not the level of Malchus, the way it's concealed, but it's concealed in a way that there is some type of revelation, some type of existence. Like we said, the example of flame that exists within the coal, even though it's covered by the coal and you don't see it, but the flame is in there, you're aware of it, the heat, etc., etc. That then, if it would be an existence of kingship, but it's just concealed, so then you could say that that's the reason why it's called a king. Similar to the names of Reuben and Shimon, that's connected with the idea that Hashem saw, Hashem heard. So there is some meaning, there is something there. Drawing down and making Hashem's kingship on Rosh Hashanah is from the very deepest part, from the very essence of the Eibishter. That's completely beyond all these type of ideas of kingship, for example, and any other type of relationship or description. It's so beyond, let's say, being a king, that you can't even say that he's not a king. Because as soon as you're saying a shlila, as soon as you're negating something, that itself indicates that the matter has some significance and has some import and so on. I knew this means the drawing down of the malchus, which is, we said malchus and shame are the same thing. Baruch Shem Kivoy Malchusay. In such a place, by Metzias Hashem, top of page 11, that there's no existence of name over there whatsoever. The dogmas Hashem is Shem Lam Tam, similar to names that have no reason. It's completely beyond anything that's possible to be comprehended. The Ein Metzias Shel Malchus. There's no existence of kingship in that level that we're trying to draw out and create a kingship. Nitakim Metzias. There's no existence. All there is just the being of Hashem's very essence. And also what there is, and there's the existence of a Jewish person that's calling the Eibishter by his name. Through a Yid calling the Eibishter by his name, that he turns in his very and entire essence to all those that call him. Even if there's no comparison whatsoever between the one, and there's no at all any association between the one that's calling him by his name to the one that's being called, till the true level that there's no comparison whatsoever, the complete total distance as there is between Hashem's very essence and us. So now we're going to get back to what we started at the beginning of the Maimer, that we said that there's the calling from the depths, that there is 10 depths throughout our Aseret Yemei Tshuva that we're going through. That's what it means, call the song of calling out from the depths. Well, we need to affect the building of the spheres of Malchus in all the 10 levels, like we spoke about at the beginning of the Maimer, that every day of the Aseret Yemei Tshuva, another component of spheres of Malchus is built, because every sphere has in it all the other 10 spheres in it. So there's Chachma Shiva Malchus and Das Shiva Malchus and Netzach Shiva Malchus and so on. And other spheres come already pre-built. But Malchus, we have to build it up and bring every single sphere back into it. And every single day we're drawing it down from the depths again to create that sphere for that particular day. So we say every single day of the 10 days of the Aseret Yemei Tshuva, we say, we said the why is it called Mimamakim, from the depths in the plural, because it's a depth that's even higher than depth. In other words, it's beyond even, like we said, an ordinary name, a descriptive name, a name that has some type of meaning. It's from the ultimate highest depth. The feature call speaking, because all the depth that you would even describe, they're insufficient to describe how deep we're going over here. Because we have to draw it down from a place that there's no existence whatsoever over there. All that there exists in this level is just the existence of the Yidden and the existence of Hashem's very essence. And this idea of drawing it down from that depth, that becomes about through the inspiration down here below of a Jewish person, that he awakens and inspires from his depth. We spoke about earlier in the Maimer that there's two explanations in Mimamakim. It's actually two opinions in the Zohar. There's Rabbi Abba and Rabbi Yitzchak. One says that Mimamakim is talking about from Hashem's depth, and another opinion the Zohar says it's talking about from the depth of a Yid. So the Rebbe says both are true, that to be able to evoke and draw down from the Mimamakim of Hashem, the Oimik Lefnim Oimik, this greatest depth possible, where all there is Hashem, without any even designs of Malchus, can only happen through an inspiration from a Yid when he awakens, when he finds his innermost depth that is beyond any type of depth. Like it's explained at length in many places, the idea of the 10 days of the tshuva is the movement of the very essence of the person. By the person also, it's that part of the person that's beyond any matter of name, any type of reasoned and explained aspect of the name. Even higher than the name of Reuven, that says on it, that says about it, that it's the reason for it is because he saw. Like Shem Shimon, or the name Shimon, that concerning the name of Shimon, it says the reason that he heard. For an even greater depth, from that level of a name in the person that's beyond any explanation, that third level that the Rebbe introduced here in the Maim. In a different Maimer, the Rebbe explains this, that this is connected with two levels of tshuva. He calls it the idea of the inyanat tshuva and the muhusat tshuva. One is about the tshuva, the inyanat tshuva is about doing tshuva on details, even if it's not Avedas, but he's detailed tshuva, or even a closed dikkat inyan, it's about, I want to be good and I want to improve my goodness. The muhusat tshuva, the very being of tshuva, is something beyond that. I'm completely returning to Hashem, completely. Ich stell sich auf an anderen Ort, the Rebbe, I think, used the expression here. I'm placing myself in a totally different place. I'm a totally different person than before, like the Rambam also says when he describes the true idea of tshuva, that he takes on a new name because I'm not the same person that I was there before. That's similar to what he says over here. That's azazas kolatz musay, that it's his entire being that becomes, that moves, etc. And therefore he continues in the pasuk. While Zen Namar concerning this, it says, "From the depths I call out to you, Havaya, or I draw you down, Havaya. From here comes the calling out. When I call out, I'm drawing it down. And now I'm drawing it down from that level of the ultimate depth that we spoke about before into the four letters of Yud-Kei Vav-Kei. Ad lahei tachtoina, till the final hey, the last hey of Yud-Kei Vav-Kei. That last hey of Yud-Kei Vav-Kei has to do with the sphere of Malchus. Shibedugma, sphere of Malchus, similar to the sphere of Malchus, be Yosef Kvar B'chinas Shetach, till it's already a matter of space, it's already expansion, because essentially there's three levels of development. It's called Nekuda, Kav, Shetach. There's a point, and then there's a line that draws down from that point, and then there's area, there's space. And Malchus is already the level of area and space. Ad Shetach Shabaylam Hazat Tach, until the space of this low world. Chain Tach Lamatam, there's nothing lower than it. You can negate He'achroinu Shemavai, that's the corresponds to the final Hey of Shem Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, and that's to where we draw down from this ultimate level, from this highest, most level of the Mamakim, the Oimik Lefnim Ma'im. By days and through this, Nasa Binyan Spheres of Malchus, I de Kolechem Yisrael, Chol B'nei Yisrael. Through this comes about the building of Spheres of Malchus, through every single Yid and through the entire Klal Yisrael. Why is that so? Since Hashem accepts this coronation, and Hashem receives the coronation with a beautiful countenance. Like the Eibishter began to receive us in the month of El, like it says, that he receives everybody b'seir upon him office. So he continues that type of attitude and that type of acceptance in accepting our coronation in such a way as well. And afterwards, we have also the revelation of the light of the face of the living King. The Rosh Hashanah made שובה during this entire time period. Ad fills Ne'ilah through and until the fill of Ne'ilah. Shubam Amshichim Mishma Yisrael Gomer Legimel Pam Baruch Shem Kvei B'Kusnan Vod V'Zayim Pamim Havayu Olakim. That this is also an idea of drawing down. We're drawing it down through various levels. We're drawing it down Shema Yisrael to 3 times Baruch Shem and 7 times Havayu Olakim. Imavur Barucha and Yanim, like the ideas explained at length in other places. And Nasa Chodesh Tishrei Meloshin Tishbar. Then it comes the month of Tishrei from the word improvement, from the expression to improve, Shapar Masechem, improve your actions, Shumaloshin Tainug. It's also beautifying, which indicates the idea of delight, beauty and delight go together. Shall call Yisrael Tia Shana Shall Tainug B'Chalei Yanim. That every single Yid should have a year of delight and enjoyment and pleasure in all matters. From the inyanim of the most highest of high till the most lowest matters, until the levels of children and life and sustenance and revichi in a comfortable way. A good and blessed year and everything that is necessary. Like it's emphasized also in the fact that the month of Tishrei is called the 7th month, from the expression of satisfied and satiates others. In other words, it is fully satisfied because it has full of Yom Tovim, but also it satiates others because from the hashpaz of Tishrei it comes out to the rest of the year. What I just now said. Until it's also the number 7 indicates the revelation of the 7 shepherds. Starting, another Moshe Rabbeinu was our shepherd. There was David HaMelech and Shalom Shech Tzedkenu, especially the shepherd Shech Tzedkenu will be our shepherd. Gula Mitzvah Shlema, the Shech Tzedkenu, the true and complete redemption through Mashiach. Shana Zu Mamish this year, Ba'ifin Shabbat Kelos, in such a manner that right away at the beginning. Miyad lachrit kiyas shofar, immediately after blowing shofar, nasa inyan the mesasheres b'shlei shvav, imavur baruch, it becomes the idea that it becomes rich at the end. It says any year that's poor at the beginning, it becomes rich at the end. So the Rebbe says the poverty means the idea of bittul, and the end doesn't mean literally the end of the year, chavtes el tavshin pei gimel, but it means right after the beginning is already began the end. So right away we have the riches, both spiritual and physical, immediately after the shofar. The nimshach ba'if and the shofar of a time to come down the way of shofar that we said that's word beauty and delight. We know the light causes a broadening and expansion in all spiritual and physical matters. Ad l'kiyama, like the story over there with Vespasian and Yechim Zakai. Ad l'kiyama yud, till the fulfillment of the promise. Before Hashem, the kingship, ubakar of mamish, and soon, very much, speedily in our days. Okay. In Merz Hashem, we will